According to an old legend, the Georgians were late when God gave the nations their territories. By the time they arrived, the land for settlement had already been distributed. The Creator asked why they were late. He heard that the travelers got hungry on the way, so they stopped for a meal and some wine. Then the Georgians drank a beautiful toast in God's honor. The Almighty liked their answer and gave them the land He had kept for Himself. Scientists disagree with this legend. According to them, Georgia was settled not late, but very early. The oldest human remains are almost 2 million years old, and already in the Stone Age the climatically favorable area was almost completely populated. Later, a kingdom called Colchis was established in what is now the western part of Georgia. The famous Greek legend of the Argonauts tells of Jason's theft of the golden fleece from this kingdom. Jason needed the fleece to regain his throne. With the help of 50 heroes and Medea, the daughter of the king of Colchis, who had fallen in love with Jason, Jason was able to escape with the fleece and Medea. In ancient times, the expedition was considered a historical fact, an event in the opening of the Black Sea to Greek trade and colonization. To trade, you need goods, and they came from the east, from the interior, via a trade route along the Mkveri River. And because the traders also needed a break from time to time, the cave city of Uplistsikhe was built from the 2nd century BC. It was almost impregnable above the river, and developed into a trading center on the Silk Road with up to 5,000 inhabitants. There was an amphitheater, a pharmacy, a bakery, warehouses, a prison, a market and, after Christianization, some churches. With the Christianization early in the 4th century, Uplistsikhe seems to have declined in its importance and lost its position to the new centers of Christian culture, Skida, and, later to Tbilisi. Georgian letters appear for the first time around this era. There are 33 letters. And while all this was happening, the two small kingdoms of Georgia were breaking up into principalities. Elsewhere, great empires arose. These empires dominated almost all the smaller peoples in the Caucasian, including the Georgians. The Romans replaced the Greeks, and soon Georgia was at times dependent on the Romans, Persians, Arabs, or Byzantium. This continued for centuries until the 11th century AD, when Georgia was unified for about 150 years and experienced a golden age, especially under the reign of Queen Tamar. It was Queen Tamar who transformed the rock city and fortress of her father into a cave monastery. The main period of construction of Vardzia was the second half of the 12th century. The caves stretch along the cliff high about the river Mkveri for about 500 meters and up to 13 levels. It lies some 200 kilometers upstream of Uplistsikhe. The monastery was an important cultural center, a place of significant literary and artistic work. The most famous poem of the great Georgian poet Shota Rustaveli was written here, in the Vardzia monastery. According to the legend, he was in love with Queen Tamar, and even served her as Minister of Finance. His love remained unrequited, and Rustaveli dealt with this in his literary work. Unfortunately, the builders of the rock cities did not take into account the frequent earthquakes. As a result, both Vardzia and Uplistsikhe are partially destroyed today. Destruction and death followed in the centuries after Tamar's death. First came the Mongols and the plague, and from the 14th century until the 18th century Turks in the west and Persians in the east divided Georgia, which was fragmented into small principalities. The situation changed in the middle of the 18th century. Russia pushed southward in a series of wars, including against the Persians and Turks, and with the support of some Georgians began to annex Georgia from 1801. Georgia remained Russian territory until 1991, apart from a 3-year period of independence from 1918. The song Suliko is the favorite song of the most famous Georgian. He called himself Joseph Stalin. Covered by a pavilion in front of the Stalin Museum is the small hut where Stalin was born in 1878 and spent his early years. At a young age, Stalin became a professional revolutionary. He was frequently arrested in Tsarist Russia and repeatedly escaped. After the 1917 revolution, Stalin rose quickly through the ranks, becoming General Secretary of the Communist Party in 1922. During the quarter-century before his death in 1953, Stalin wielded probably more political power than any other figure in history. Stalin industrialized the Soviet Union and forcibly collectivized its agriculture. The resulting famines cost millions of lives. He created a powerful military-industrial complex and transformed the Soviet Union into a major world power. Stalin consolidated his position through intense police terror, helped defeat Germany, and extended Soviet control over a belt of Eastern European states. He was a skilled but ruthless organizer. Stalin destroyed the vestiges of individual freedom and failed to promote individual prosperity. The period from 1991 to 2023 remains. It started with trouble with the first president, a secession war with Abkhazia in 1992 with 50,000 dead and 250,000 displaced, a bad start to independence. Only under former Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze there were calmer years, but more and more corruption and economic crisis. This led to the Rose Revolution in 2003, and the new president was Saakashvili. He fought corruption effectively, but in 2008 he led the country into a secessionist war with South Ossetia. This ended with Georgia defeated by Russia, which still considers Georgia its sphere of influence. The two presidents who have followed since 2014 have tried to strike a balance between Russia and an integration into the West. A Georgian proverb says, "A golden plate is worth nothing to me if my blood is spilled on it."